I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and this will be about Rochester, New York, and some of the area around it. This was on a tour out of Stan Hewitt Hall and Gardens last year, 1995. I won't point out all of the places, but all of the things in red are places that we will go. And this last one will be a Genesee County museum that we will look at. So let's just plunge on in and get started. Here are some of the places that we will go, some of the folders from them. And the first place we'll go to is the Campbell Whittlesey House. And this is in the nature of a museum. It's right smack against one of the expressways there through Rochester. But you can still get a feel for it if you take the time and get away from the traffic noise. Sort of a neat place. And since Stan Hewitt is also historic, and a lot of the people on the tour were guides at Stan Hewitt, of course they asked a lot of questions and knew a lot about taking people through places like that. And we hit Rochester on the time of the Lilac Festival, and no, those are not lilacs, but this is part of it, and we're over in that area now. And into that conservatory there, some of the cactus and so forth. And as far as I remember, this is called money pocket flower. Kind of nice and beautiful specimens. Foxglove. And it was a little rainy, but we nevertheless went out into the lilacs as well. And they do have quite a stand of lilacs there. It's quite a nice place. And then my wife and I took the time to walk all the way over and see this exhibit of pansies. We had seen it from the bus, but not so that you could take pictures of it. Really quite pleasant. And as this guy was coming around the corner, I got his picture. Some more tulips. The dates were May 17th through 20th, so all of the early tulips were in bloom. And then on an area they call Corn Hill is where some of the older homes are, and that incidentally is where that Campbell Whittlesey house is on Corn Hill. This is the home of Susan B. Anthony, 1866 to 1906. And she was the one that broke through. She got arrested for it, but she broke through the voting of a woman. And I never take pictures of McDonald's, but here is the McDonald's. This is right on the exact spot where in 1872 Susan B. Anthony voted, and that's why you are looking at a McDonald's restaurant, and we'll move away from that. Some of the skyline of Rochester. And then in the old Mount Hope Cemetery, I'm not sure whether Susan B. Anthony is buried there or not. I think Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, is buried there. She may be too. This is an old Highland Park diner that's on one of the list of things you must see. We didn't eat there, but we at least saw it. That's the canal, the Erie Canal. That was built in 1817 to 1825. A little bit of stuff there, reflections. And this is the spring house. This is where we ate lunch. This was built, well, it's controversial, but somewhere around 1822. And those were the placemats. That's where I got the Erie Canal. This is one of the houses down by the canal. It should say Richardson Canal House, and I believe that's what it says. And this is that canal. Of course, we ourselves are right in canal country. This is the Spring House Restaurant. I think I gave you some little misinformation there. I think that other was another building. But the Spring House Restaurant, this one is built in about 1822, and this is where we had lunch. Many of these places you can spend all the money you want. And then we went over to one of the places where you should not miss in Rochester, New York, and that's the George Eastman Home and Museum and Gardens. This goes back to about 1902 to 1905. And this is in the museum. And you see people around with camcorders today, and this is what you used to use to project film. This is in the dining room of the Eastman home. The ornate ceiling. And then moving into the conservancy. At least that's what I have written down, conservancy. It ought to be a conservatory, I think. Now that elephant has been, that's really not the original elephant. The thing was so old that they redid it with some other stuff. And so it still resembles the original. And the gardens around the Eastman home are really, really quite nice, quite nice. Back into the billiard room here, hopefully. Nice chandeliers in some of these places. Back outside again. And then I was, I think, the only one that took the time to go all the way around. I guess I was showing you the living room. This is the billiard room. And out from there is some more of the gardens. But I went all the way around to get this picture from the front of the house. We were on a rather tight schedule, unfortunately. If you were doing it in your own car, you'd have a bit more leisure. Had to show you a close-up of some of the lilacs, even though I didn't take that picture out at the festival. I took that right here at the Eastman home. Little rock garden. And then we went down to the Strong Museum. Now, my wife and I were not awfully taken with the Strong Museum. It seemed to be collections. They had something like 500 or so dolls. They had just umpteen of this, umpteen of that, and so forth. But anyhow, that is the Strong Museum sort of down in Rochester. Now, this is the Mercury statue on a building that where they publish law books. And right down from that, and I took this picture from our room, this green building, that's where Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, published North Star, the abolitionist newspaper, right here in Rochester. And then this shell-like sculpture is on top of one of the buildings right there in downtown. Of course, these are taken with telephoto to pull them in. And there's the Kodak building off to the side. See, Xerox and Kodak were both here. And looking down on, this is the Genesee River. This is the one that comes through Letchworth State Park and is used for the manufacture of beer and comes here, and it's on its way into Lake Ontario. It's flowing that way to the right. And then if you look over here, this was one of the aqueducts taking the Erie Canal over the Genesee River. And now we have gone outside of Rochester down into the northern edge of the Finger Lakes, and sort of northwestern edge of the Finger Lakes. And this is Canandaigua. And this is the Granger Homestead. This was built in 1816. And we'll look at the carriage house back in there in a moment. But inside the house. And we thought we were going to go and try and find something to eat. That was the plans in the little town. But the ladies here who guided us through and who sort of run this place had lunch all prepared for us, and we ate it in the halls and so forth of the house that we were touring. This is Gideon Granger. He was Postmaster General under Thomas Jefferson. And this little lady here is our guide, a real jewel of a person. She just struts around and really tells you everything and knows it all. She really is quite good. Very dark shot, so let's move on. And outside they have the carriage houses. This is one of the original barns, and then they had to actually build another barn because they had so many carriages to get under cover. This is the old Hubble Law Office right on the grounds. This building was brought in, however, and in this building, Stephen Douglas, who later debated Abraham Lincoln, once practiced law. Here are a lot of the carriages. They really have a collection of them. And I guess I was the only one that went out on the front lawn to get pictures from that direction of the house. And we've moved over to the western side of Canandaigua, and this is the Sonnenberg Gardens and Mansion, and this dates back to 1855. No, that is not the mansion, but we will go through there. That's the shops and stuff like that. But you go through there to actually get into the gardens themselves. And they have quite a few greenhouses, and I like to take pictures of orchids so that so you will see a few orchids. And those pictures were taken just inside that greenhouse. And we're over in the Japanese garden now. Japanese garden needs some work. It really does. It's not up to what it should be. But here is the house. And as it turned out, while we were there, and we were all associated with Stan Hewitt, the man who was head of Sonnenberg Home and Gardens, Mansion and Gardens, is now the director of Stan Hewitt. And it was announced about maybe 2 weeks after we got back from this trip. And we didn't know anything about it at the time. These are all various little gardens as we were approaching the house. So you can see we did not just stay in Rochester. We were out, and that's why I had the addition and a bit of Upstate on my title slide. We're inside now. Unlike Stan Hewitt, they let you take pictures inside. No flash. That's why some of these tend to be rather dark, no flash. Looking out one of the windows. Yes, they're all for sale. Makes a good picture though, doesn't it? And looking out another one of the windows, I think it's right in that gift shop. That's Lake Canandaigua. They are one of the Finger Lakes of upper New York State. And there's the house, the mansion, the home, whatever you want to call it. Really is sort of neat. Reminds me a little bit about the home of Theodore Roosevelt out on Long Island. But this one's much bigger. And then we were at Castle Lager Vineyards and Winery. And they do their grapes in several different ways, but looking across their vineyards, you see the skyline of Rochester in the background. And then going inside, here are some of the holding tanks, stainless steel holding tanks. Here's the lady that guided us through that was telling us about pulverizing the grapes and all kinds of things. She was quite nice, very helpful. Knew the answer to virtually every question we came up with. But going through some of the tanks, and here's where they are aging in oak. Everything spick and span, of course, as it must be. And there she's talking about how you store wines. On a rack illustrating it. And here's what it looks like, the building. And you can buy all the wines you want. And what did I buy? A jigsaw puzzle. Now on the way back we passed this place and all of this stuff is for sale. This is a garden center in front of a house. It really made a neat picture. Then as soon as we got back that night, the weather was so good that I dashed down to get pictures of the high falls that we had seen the first night we were there. But of course it was night and we couldn't take pictures because off of this wall over here, which is natural, they do a laser show and they do sort of a history of the Rochester area. The high falls are 96 feet, which by Western standards isn't all that high. This is the Genesee River. And it is worth seeing. I'll tell you, it really is quite nice. Beautiful falls, beautiful. And this is that high wall. See, now our hotel is back over in here. Now we've gone out to Crescent Beach Restaurant to eat a fancy dinner that night, and I got a rainbow over Lake Ontario. And that's what the restaurant looks like. We've moved now to that last red spot, the one I actually showed you, Genesee Country Museum, and we're in the Gallery of Sporting Arts. This is a Frederick Remington sculpture here, and I believe this is a Charlie Russell. And I know this is an Allen Hauser. Allen was an Apache sculptor. He died about 2 years ago, and my wife and I were able one time when we were in Santa Fe with a group to go out to his studio and home and everything else, and I took this picture of Allen Hauser at that time. I've since furnished a copy of it to the museum there because they had no picture of him. And that's one of his also that's outside. And this is a Kiowa Indian by Richard Greaves. A little bandstand, a gazebo, I don't know which they call that. And this is a beautiful eagle out there. This is by Kent Uhlberg. And then we're going to go into a 19th century village. Bears, I don't have a name for the sculpture of those. And as you go into this village, you pass by the gatekeeper, and that high hat was traditional with gatekeepers. This is 57 restored buildings in here. And that's the Foster Tufts house. And the physician's office is the one on the right, and Hastings Law Office is sort of in the middle of the picture. This is the McKay Homestead, and beyond it is the Amherst Humphrey House. I really had a hard time looking at their map and piecing this all together after I got home. This is the Hamilton House. And in it is this sculpture. This is Lincoln by Rodgers, R-O-G-E-R-S, in the Hamilton House. And then since we'd seen all of those carriages, we really didn't go back to this because this is the carriage barn of the Hamilton House. You can understand the Hamilton House is one of the chief attractions here. This is the dressmaker's shop, is the one in the middle, and then down from it is the cooper's shop. Cooper would make barrels. And then the log cabin is Kiefer's place. This is quite a village, 57 restored buildings brought in from all over this area of upstate New York. This is the wagon maker where you actually see the wagon. Wagon wheel, wagon maker, wheelwright, and then the gun shop, gunsmith shop is behind it. And then this is the Octagon House, and that is the Hamilton House behind it, but the Octagon House. And we're going to look at the dining room there. I got 3 different pictures in here, and a light fixture that I sort of liked, and then a painting. Those were all in the Octagon House. And right close by is the Eastman birthplace. I'm not sure where that house was, but they brought it in to here. And then a few lilacs, since it's lilac time. And all those lilacs really put the fragrance in the air when we were walking around, because it had gotten nice and warm. This is the Jones farm. And we should see some chickens here, yeah. I happen to know that's a barred rock chicken. And some formal gardens. And the Romulus Female Seminary, that's the one closest to us, and the one with the bigger tower to it is the town hall. And a few games on the village square. The Brooks Grove Post Office. I don't know which MacArthur this was, but this is the MacArthur House. And then I mentioned the town hall before. Here's a closer picture of the town hall. And then over here is Livingstone Backus House. This is the outside, and I'll have about 3 pictures. Well, I'll have 2 pictures inside and another outside. This is a beautiful newel post inside. That represents a pineapple, which represents friendship, I believe. And then in the kitchen, this lady was making a few things. Cookies, I believe, is what she was doing at that time. And then outside, another view from outside, different direction. And then the old Brooks Grove Methodist Church. And then a boot and shoemaker's shop. That one looks like it's kind of old. Thompson's Tavern and Store. And then the Hastings Law Office is on our left, and the physicians on the other side. And those were some of the first pictures I took from the other angle. And we'll close out this particular one going back up to Lake Ontario, and an extension, a better picture of that rainbow on Lake Ontario.